Okay, guys, is video clear or not? Okay, guys, please tell me, is what video clear or not? Hello, everyone. Is stream clear? Can anybody confirm me? Hi everyone, good morning, and guys, welcome to the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So there was some kind of an issue that came, and now the stream will work fine. So guys, let's start with the today's video. In the video, we are going to discuss the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper. We'll simplify all the articles, we'll take all the articles, we'll understand their background along with the way forward. Now, before starting, I would like to tell you that if you are new here, you can download the explainer PDF from the Telegram channel. In this explainer PDF, I have given the notes of all the articles that are important into the today's newspaper. You can download it from the Telegram. The link for the Telegram channel has been given in the description box in YouTube. Moreover, you can directly visit the Telegram and can search there by typing Thinking Palette by Sahil, and there you will get these particular notes, and to the in the last the mains practice question has also been given. Now, starting up, first of all, we will be taking up the newspaper overview to understand that actually what is the placement of the articles and which articles are actually important for the today's examination. Now, the first article, it talks about the GDP growth dips to 6.3% as manufacturing sector slides. So guys, this is basically here we can see that basically the quarterly datas have been released. Okay, so we will briefly be taking up this particular data, but you are not required to go too much into the detail because it is just the quarterly update that has been there. Then after that, Supreme Court to look into the Bilkis Bano petition against early release of the 11 convicts. So guys, recently into the Gujarat, 11 of the convicts who have been involved into the Bilkis Bano rape case, they were released. So for that thing, the petition has been filed. Then after that, the Shinde government to form panel to probe flights of mega projects. Okay, then guys, a regional issue, not very much important. Then guys, India-US exercise near LAC irks China. So basically, guys, we can see this particular thing that the Yudh Abhyas exercise has been held between the USA and the India, and this Yudh Abhyas exercise has irritated China because it happened very much into the vicinity of the LAC. Okay, then further moving on, after that, the city section, in the city section, the MCD elections that are ensuing, okay, the regional issues, etc., has been discussed. Okay, then there is one more article, cyber attack onto the aims. Okay, we will take this particular article with respect to our GS paper number 3, cyber security, because on the text and the context also one article in this particular line has come. Then again, the city section, the political issues, etc., have been talked about. You don't need to go too much into the detail. And finally, we will be reaching directly to the editorial section. And in the editorial, the first article, Party Congress over understanding the China muzzle. We'll see this particular article. It is talking about the recent National Congress that has been held in the China. Then an Indian recipe to quell micronutrient malnutrition. Good article with respect to the hunger. We'll see this particular article. Then guys, after that, unseemly conflict. Government's diatribe does not resolve conflict over the judicial appointment. So basically, guys, in the past, multiple times we have seen this particular issue that onto the judicial appointment, there is a issue that is going on. So right now, you might be knowing it that the Supreme Court and the High Court judges appointment happens via the collegium system. But now there is the petitions that are saying that this collegium system should be removed because this collegium system brings the favoritism and nepotism. Okay, so on that particular thing, a petition has been filed. Okay, so we have taken this particular article also multiple times into the past as well. Then the cease and desist. The BBMP had no business outsourcing electoral work to the NGO. So in the yesterday's newspaper analysis, we have taken one article that there is one of the NGO which has taken the electoral data illegally. Okay, so basically the article is talking about that why The article is talking about that why the Bengaluru's civic body had involved the NGO anyhow in collecting the data. Now they have taken the data illegally. Then towards the robust triumvirate. Okay, so this article guys talking about the recent election commission, basically the ECI's issues going on into the Supreme Court. We'll see this particular article, a very good article. Then after that, moving on, layoffs by the IT firms in the US will greatly impact the H1B visa. So guys, a few days back, if you remember, I have told you that also, that right now the tech companies, they are laying off a large number of people. The Meta has laid off large number of people. Then Amazon had basically holded the new hirings. So basically the high skilled Indians that are going into the USA, they will be impacted by that. Why? Because these high skilled Indians, they go on the H1B visa, and now when the companies are laying off the people, they will be impacted. The Assam Meghalaya border firing, we'll see this particular article. Then the ransomware attacks increasing in India, we'll see this particular article also. Then guys, moving on. Okay, so this is a bibliography article, books on Patna. Fine. So basically guys, this is talking about the books. For example, there has been Romila Thapar in a history of India published by the Penguin. Okay, so by these particular books, the references about the Patna city are being given. Then 16 drones shot down along the border this year, BSF. You don't need to go track this particular data, how many drones were shot down, okay? But understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the borders, okay, we find this particular thing that particularly the Pakistan border, Pakistan border, many a times from the Pakistan sides, the border has been breached by the Pakistani elements, where they are breaching the border to send the drugs, to send the weaponry and all such kind of things. Then further moving on in this particular direction, guys. After that moving on, here the political articles etc has been given. G20 agenda of India has been given. We'll see this article. Now this particular page, that is the page number 12, contains much of the important news. Supreme Court worried over the effects of the GM crops on livelihood of women farmer. We'll see this article. Then the World Bank report has been released onto the cooling sector. We'll see this particular article. Supreme Court seeks a center's response on evolving the Great Indian Bustard program. This article also will see important article. Russian Chinese bombers fly joint patrols over the Pacific. Okay. Then anti-Taliban force spars to unify, says former Afghan leader. Not very much important article with respect to the examination. India's core sector growth braked at 0.1% in October. So the basically monthly data about the core sector growth has been released. Fine. Then moving on in this particular direction, fiscal deficit touches 45.6%. Now, one particular thing, though I have told you it many number of times, that guys, the monthly data, monthly estimates, for example, monthly fiscal deficit data, export import data, fine, quarterly GDP estimate data that is being given, you are not required to learn, and you are not required to see this month by month data, because for the exam that is not very much important, because by the time our exam will come, these particular things would have changed substantially. Then after that, new digital lending norms kicks in today. Okay, so the new digital lending norms are coming. Fine, we'll see this particular thing. Then after that, Sitaraman sees government capital spending spurring growth. Okay, so basically, guys, right now we find this particular thing, that government is increasing the capital expenditure into the infrastructure and all such kind of things, which is very important to bring the growth. But at the same time, if you remember, yesterday also we have taken one article that the private sector investment, the state government's investment into the capital expenditure, as well as the PSUs, fine, investment into the capital expenditure are not coming. Okay, then moving on in this particular direction, guys. After that, panel moots gas pricing freedom for 2026. So by 2026, basically we find this particular thing, that the Kirit Parekh panel has suggested that natural gas is to be included into the one nation one tax GST regime, and by 2026 it has to be done. Then moving on, after that we have the sports page. Okay, so that is all guys about this particular article, the sports page. That is all about the overview of the newspaper, and now let's discuss all the relevant articles one by one in the detail. Now starting up, so guys, in everyday newspaper we take first of all the GS quotation, and this GS quotation can be utilized in our GS papers 1 2 3 4. So today we'll take the quotation from the Nelson Mandela. So Nelson Mandela says that overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice. So overcoming poverty is not an act of charity. Okay, it is not just a kind of a it is not just a kind of a charity. Rather, it is a service. Rather, it is a justice. Rather, it is a constitutional duty of a state that has to be done. It is a kind of a mandate that has been imposed onto the state by the virtue of the social contract that the state has to do. So state cannot deny, state cannot shrug off its shoulders from reducing the poverty. That has to be done anyhow by the default design. Okay, we can use this particular idea in the answers related to the GS paper number 2 as well as in the GS paper number 4. Okay, now taking up the first article. First of all, guys, we'll read the heading, then we will understand that in which particular part of our GS paper it will be important, and then we finally be taking up in the going in the article. So the article says that 160 to 200 million Indians could be exposed to lethal heat waves annually, World Bank report. Now, this particular article, guys, will be seen with respect to the GS paper number 3, GS paper number 3, effects of the climate change, effects of the climate change, and how the climate change will be having its economic impacts. Climate change and its economic impacts. We'll see this particular thing. Now, moving on. So basically, guys, first of all, what has happened? The World Bank has released a report, and the report's name is Climate Investment Opportunities in India's Cooling Sector Report. Now, this particular report, first of all, provides this thing that in the coming years, because of the increasing temperature, the heat waves will increase. According to this article, it is being said that from to 2030, 160 million to 200 million people will be exposed to the lethal heat waves in every year. Now, the lethal heat waves are those which had a negative impact onto the health, and it is provided that because of the heat waves will increased, there will be the productivity that will be declined. Now, guys, obviously, suppose you are doing some kind of a manual work. However, you cannot do the manual work in the 12 or 1 in the noon, in the afternoon into the month of June and July if it is severely hot there. If the heat waves will increase, obviously the productivity will decline. And because of that particular productivity decline, 34 million people will face the job losses. 44 million people will face the job losses. So therefore, as the heat is increasing, India need to have the cooling action plan. Okay, so basically the demand for the cooling is likely to get increased, and there will be the 8 times increase in the demand of cooling. And therefore, it is very much important for India that India needs to invest in such kind of cooling technologies which are environmentally sustainable, which are affordable, and such cooling technologies which can be deployed onto the large scale. So therefore, we need to deploy the alternative and innovative energy efficient technologies for providing the cooling requirement, and it will require the investment of around $1.6 trillion by 2040. $1.6 trillion investment into the cooling requirements will be needed in just the next 17-18 years. Moreover, as we will be investing in these cooling technologies, obviously that particular thing will drive the employment, and 3.7 million jobs 3.7 million jobs will be created because the cooling sector industries will get a boost. Cooling sector industries will be increased. Now, for example, here it has been provided that there will be the new air conditioner that will be required every 15 seconds. So the demand of ACs will go up, and it has been provided that there will be the, because of this ACs, 435% increase in annual greenhouse gas emissions will also be there into the next 2 decades. Now, guys, see this particular thing. Basically, we have struck in a very sticky kind of a situation. See this particular thing, guys, that what is happening? The heat is increasing. And if I use here the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 6th assessment report, they have said that the wet bulb temperature will also increase. Wet bulb temperature means that the humidity will increase. So when the heat plus humidity will increase, actually the coolers that we used, they will fail. And therefore, what will be the only solution? Only solution will be the air conditioners. Now, as we have to use air conditioners, these air conditioners will need a lot of electricity, and as they will need a lot of electricity, now the electricity is coming from the coal fired power plants. Okay, so as they will need electricity, what will happen? Ultimately, the carbon emission will increase. And as the carbon emission will increase, it will again increase the heat. Okay, it again, as the heat is increasing, evaporation is increasing, the humidity will increase. It will further require more ACs. It will need more electricity, more carbon emission, then again heat. So basically, we have stuck in a kind of a vicious circle, and because of this particular vicious circle, India needs to invest into the innovative solution of the cooling. Okay, now it has been provided that there is a actually need, there is a need to shift towards, more energy efficient pathways, fine, by which the cooling requirements can be provided and it can reduce the carbon emissions also. Now it has been provided that, guys, India has released the India Cooling Action Plan 2019, and under this India Cooling Action Plan 2019, India, we have provided that we will be focusing on investment into the three sectors. That is the building and construction. We want to build such kind of a houses which are more cool, which are more cooled by the way of this its design. We need to invest into the cold chains so that the foods don't go stale, foods don't get ruined. And then we need to invest into the new refrigerants which are environmentally sustainable. Now see this particular thing. Therefore, in order to respond, we need to have heavy investments by both the private as well as government sectors. We need to have private and government funded constructions that can help the people who are at the bottom of the economic ladder, poor rickshaw pullers, poor manual laborers, workers, construction workers, to provide them the cooled infrastructures. The private and public sector has to come together. Moreover, this particular report of the World Bank, it has suggested that as we talk about, the government is running the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, households, pakka households units are being provided to the people. So here we need to adopt the changes that cooled cooled and heat efficient cooling efficiency households should be provided to them. Moreover, this World Bank report has also proposed the district cooling plan. Now this district cooling plan can reduce the energy consumption by 20 to 30%. Energy consumption can be reduced. Now let's understand that what is the district cooling plan. So basically, district cooling plan, it has been provided that we need to generate the chilled water in a central plant. Okay, suppose this particular thing is, guys, that suppose this is a city. Okay, this is a city. Now in a city there will be a central plan, and in this particular central plant there will be the chilled water that will be developed. Now this chilled water will be provided through the pipelines to all the major buildings in the city. Okay, will be provided through the pipelines. Now these pipelines will be underground insulated pipes so that the loss of coolness is not there. And by this particular thing, what can happen, the city wide buildings can be, their temperature can be reduced, they can be kept cool, and by that particular thing, their dependence on ACs, their dependence on cooling additional expenditure will be reduced. So it has been provided that chilled water pipelines can provide the chilled water, fine, to the buildings. Okay, and if it is implemented, fine, it can help India's cooling strategy and can help lives and livelihoods of the millions and millions of people. And by this district cooling plan, as the individual buildings dependence on cooling will reduce, it ultimately it will also reduce the carbon emissions. Fine. So that is all, guys, about this particular article. I hope that you have understood this particular article, and this is all about this particular article. And now we'll be moving to the next article. And guys, I will say that this is a 5-star article. 5-star article, and had touched very important dimensions of the climate change that is coming. Now moving to the next article. Are ransomware attacks increasing in India? Now, this is actually a very, very good article, particularly with respect to the GS paper number 3, internal security, and within the internal security, cyber security. Within the internal security, cyber security, this is a very, very important article. In this particular article, we'll understand that what are the ransomware attacks, are they increasing? Moreover, the most importantly, here we are going to see the institutional mechanisms that we are having in India and how these institutional mechanisms are dealing with the cyber security. Now, first of all, why this particular article has become important into the right now? Basically, guys, recently the e-services, electronic services at the AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Services were crippled because of the ransomware attack that was carried onto the AIMS servers. AIMS servers were down because they were hacked by the ransomware attackers. Now the AIMS have said this particular thing, that they have retrieved the significant number of files, but still the entire network, its nodes and hospital systems, they are being getting sensitized, they are getting sanitized, and therefore the operations right now are going manually. Right now they are not using the network because they are cleaning the network, they are sanitizing the network. That is going on. Now what is this ransomware attack that was carried onto the AIMS? So basically guys, the ransomware, it is a malware which is unleashed on a computer system, and by that particular thing, that computer system is locked. The files of that particular computer system cannot be accessed by its original user, and if those files have to be accessed, you have to pay some ransom, you have to pay some money. Now that particular money can be demanded into the forms of the cryptocurrency, or can any other form. So the ransomware attacks, it will be something like this, that suppose you are having this computer, or you have your computer servers. Now some hacker will infiltrate a virus in your system, and your system will be locked, you cannot enter in it. Now suppose there are some very crucial files that are needed. If you want to access them, you need to pay the money, so therefore you have to pay the ransom, and from the ransom the word comes the ransomware. Okay, so formally we can define the ransomware, just a minute, we can define the ransomware that it is a malicious software, harmful software, which is used by the cyber criminals to infect a computer system by blocking access to the stored data, and it encrypts the file, and if you need that file, you need to give the ransom. Now these malwares are usually injected remotely. Okay, so what will be happen? You will be receiving a email, and that email will look that it has been received from a credible source. Within that particular email there will be a link, you click on that particular link, and by that particular thing, that malware will install itself in the system. Is it clear or not? And then you will be logged out of your system. Now these ransomwares, they are not only about the money, but sometimes these ransomware attacks, they can also steal the sensitive data for some wrong kind of motives that are there. And these ransomware attacks are increasing because in this particular year we have seen multiple ransomware attacks, and the some of the important one which came into the news were the ransomware attack onto the SpiceJet, and then the Oil India Limited was also attacked. Fine. And according to the global crime trend report, now recently, now first of all, if you are following the newspaper analysis regularly, we have taken last month that the basically the Interpol's meet has happened in India. So in that Interpol's meet, this global crime trend report was published, and it provided that ransomware is the second highest threat after the money laundering. So it stands at 66%. It is the second highest threat after the money laundering. It has become such a big problem. Now, a question comes that what type of agencies, what agencies and what organizations we have to deal with the cyber attacks. So number one, there is the CERT-in. The CERT-in, it stands for Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, and this particular team, it is a national organization, it is a national agency, that collects the information about the cyber attacks. It analyzes those informations, and it circulates the inputs onto the cyber attacks to the government as well as to the related agencies. It issues the guidelines, advisories for the preventive measures, what they can do, they need to install the antivirus, or what they need to do. They issue the forecast and the alerts that, for example, the XYZ sector might be prone to cyber attack. Okay, they also take the measures to handle the cyber security in India, and they also train the computer system managers. Then after that, the second agency that we have is the National Cyber Security Coordinator under the National Security Council Secretariat. And the National Cyber Security Coordinator coordinates the different agencies at the national level, at the state level, as well as at the other levels, so that collectively they can come together and they can discuss onto the cyber security issues, they can have their cyber security plans in the place. After that, there is also the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center. Now the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center has been established to protect the national critical information infrastructure, Okay. Now, government is also rolling the cyber swachhta kendras. Now, what are the cyber swachhta kendras? These are the botnet cleaning and malware analysis center, fine, by which the malicious softwares will be identified. The free tools will be provided to remove these malicious softwares, fine. There is also the National Cyber Coordination Center, which is also creating the awareness in the users, which is creating the awareness in the agencies, that how they can identify the malicious software and what preventive measures they can take, so that they can safeguard their critical information, they can safeguard their systems from the malwares. Is it clear or not? Now guys, this is actually a very important topic within the cyber security, and all the institutional mechanisms for the cyber security that has been there, I have discussed here in this last paragraph. Now guys, I will again rate this particular article as a 5-star article. Why? Because directly relevant for your exam. Not even a single word is there in this particular article which is not relevant. Okay, so very important article. Now moving to the next article. Supreme Court seeks center's response on evolving a program to protect the Great Indian Bustard. Now again, a very important article for the prelims examination, an important article for the prelims examination, because in the prelims examination the questions onto the species are asked, and then secondly it will be important important article for the GS paper number 3. GS paper number 3, conservation and environment. Conservation. Okay, now basically guys, when we talk about the Great Indian Bustard, now you can see into the photograph here we have the Great Indian Bustard. Now the Great Indian Bustard, it is a species which is critically endangered, and 95% population of the Great Indian Bustard is found in the Rajasthan in India, and they are facing multiple threats, and their conservation is very urgent. So therefore Supreme Court has given certain suggestions. Now, before going on in this Supreme Court's suggestion that they have given on to the Great Indian Bustard, I would like to tell you little bit of a basic information which is not given in the article. Basic information not given in the article. So basically, the Great Indian Bustard, just a minute, it is a state bird of the Rajasthan, and it is considered as India's most critically endangered bird. Most critically endangered. It has just about the 150 population, and it has about just 150 population in Rajasthan, 150 population in Rajasthan, and this population in Rajasthan that is there, it's 95% of the total world population of the Great Indian Bustard. Now, as the Rajasthan shares the population, shares the boundary with the Pakistan's Sindh region, these Great Indian Bustards fly from India to Pakistan's Sindh, Pakistan's province, and there these Great Indian Bustards face the poaching. They are hunted there for their meat. They are killed by the poachers there. So many number of Great Indian Bustards are also dying because they are going to the Pakistan. Okay, so nobody is safe in the Pakistan. Not even the birds are safe there. Now, when we talk about the Great Indian Bustard, it is called as the flagship grassland species. Now, the Great Indian Bustard is a flagship grassland species, and it indicates the health of the grassland ecosystem. It indicates the health of the grassland ecosystem. Now, the population of Great Indian Bustard in India is confined to the Rajasthan, Gujarat, okay, and some small populations are also there into the Maharashtra, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, but 95% of world population is only into the Rajasthan. Now a question comes that what are the other threats that the Great Indian Bustards are facing apart from the Pakistan's threat? These birds are having threats. Number one, collision electrocution with the power transmission lines. Now understand this particular thing, that as we talk the Rajasthan is becoming a kind of an epicenter for renewable energies. Solar energies are being deployed, wind power mills are being deployed throughout the Rajasthan, and for transmission of that particular electricity, the electricity transmission lines, okay, electricity transmission lines and electricity transmission poles are erected. Now these Great Indian Bustard, their frontal vision is very weak, and many a times they are not able to see those wires, and they get tangled in those wires, they get electrocuted and they die by getting electrocuted on those wires. So these power transmission lines are leading to their large number of fatalities. Then they are being hunted, and their hunting is still prevalent into the Pakistan, as we have seen. And then there is also the habitat loss that has increased because of the agricultural expansion, industrial expansion, infrastructural expansion. Okay, so because of that they have lost their habitats, and because of that particular thing also their numbers are going down. Okay, now to conserve the great Indian bustards, there are the other schemes that have been started by the government of India. For example, they are conserved, just a minute, they are conserved under the species recovery program, and this species recovery program is being carried under the integrated development of wildlife habitat, which is being taken up by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Then Rajasthan government, it has also launched the project Great Indian Bustard, and by that particular thing they are building the breeding enclosures. Breeding enclosures are the dedicated facilities where they will be bred. Moreover, they are also trying to reduce the they are trying to develop the infrastructure to reduce the human pressure on its habitats. Fine. So these are certain things that are going on. Now what the Supreme Court has said, what the Supreme Court has suggested. The Supreme Court, while taking up the petition about the conservation of the Great Indian Bustard, had asked the government's response that can we develop the Great Indian Bustard. Now what is this project Great Indian Bustard? The project Great Indian Bustard will be the conservation program, national conservation program. Similar program is being taken up within the Rajasthan, but that is a state program. So project Great Indian Bustard will be the national conservation program onto the lines of the project Tiger. Now you might be knowing the project Tiger that was started in 1973 to conserve the population of tiger. That has been a very successful kind of a program, and on that particular line the Great Indian Bustard program can be started to conserve their population. So this is the Supreme Court's suggestion that has been given, and Supreme Court has asked the government's response on such kind of a thing. So guys, this is about this. And when we talk about the Great Indian Bustard, multiple number of times the Great Indian Bustard has been in the news in this entire year, and repeatedly this particular thing has been seen that the species that comes multiple times into the newspaper, the question have been asked on such kind of species in the examination. So therefore this particular article becomes very much important. And again, we have not only taken the substance, because it was just a 3-line matter that was provided, but the entire issue about the Great Indian Bustard, we have discussed all kind of threats that they are facing, we have discussed here in this particular article. So please download this PDF. Now moving to the next article, Assam Meghalaya border firing issue. Assam Meghalaya border firing issue. Now this particular article becomes important article within the GS paper number 2, federal issues. GS paper number 2, federal issues or federal disputes. Now you see this particular thing, that when we talk about federal disputes, fine, we are still talking about the water disputes, but there are the inter-river water disputes, but there are the other emerging disputes that have also come. And please, if a question is coming on such kind of a line, please use the examples from the contemporary sense. So in contemporary times, there is the federal dispute that between Assam and Meghalaya had come into the news because of the border. Now we have discussed a similar kind of an article few days back also, but again some new things have come in this particular direction. First of all guys, I will tell you little bit of a background, and after understanding this particular background, we'll go in the details of this particular article. So recently what had happened, the violent clashes have occurred between the Assam and the Meghalaya people and their enforcement agencies. Now there are the different versions that are coming from the Assam as well as from the Meghalaya, that why this particular confrontation, why these violent attacks happened. Now the Assam government had said that these violent attack happened after its the forest guards of Assam, they tried to intercept a truck which was carrying the smuggled timber, illegal timber. Okay, and when they tried to stop that particular truck, then they were gherowed. They were gherowed by the miscreants. They were attacked by the miscreants, and these miscreants, according to Assam, had come from the places from the Meghalaya. But at the same time, the Meghalaya's chief minister had refuted that no, this is not correct. Rather, they said this thing, that the Assam police and Assam forest guards, they entered the Meghalaya and they started killing the people, they started firing, and they started harming the people there. Now, on this particular thing, an inquiry has been constituted, but up till now, we don't have a concrete information that how this particular dispute got started. But anyhow, the inquiry has been constituted in this particular direction. Now, let's understand a little bit about the dispute between the Meghalaya and the Assam. So, guys, when we talk about the Meghalaya, Meghalaya originally was the part of the state of Assam. It was the part of a state of Assam. And it was created as an autonomous state in 1970 and became a full-fledged state in the 1972. So in 1972, Meghalaya was carved out of the Assam. Now, when we talk about the Assam and the Meghalaya, the distribution of the boundary was carried on the basis of the division of the boundary was carried onto the basis of the Assam Reorganization Meghalaya Act of 1969. Okay, please focus here. It was carried on to the basis of the Assam Reorganization Meghalaya Act of 1969, and this particular act was based onto the 1951 committee recommendation. 1951 committee recommendation. Now see this particular thing. The Meghalaya government had refused to to accept this particular act. Why Meghalaya has refused to accept this particular act? Because it has been provided that the parts of the East Jaintia Hills, Ri Bhoi, and the West Khasi Hills, which are right now the districts of the Meghalaya, portions of these particular districts were actually transferred to the Assam. It was said that this 1951 committee, okay, again, guys, I'll explain, don't be confused. There was a 1951 committee. Okay, this 1951 committee gave the recommendations with respect to the Meghalaya and the Assam boundary, and they have transferred some of the Meghalayan regions to the Assam. And the 1969 Meghalaya, 1969 Assam Reorganization Meghalaya Act that came, that was based on to this 1951 committee. So they have said that the traditional tribal lands of the Meghalaya, they got transferred to the Assam. And after the 1972, there is the series of counter exchanges that had happened between the Assam and Meghalaya, and ultimately the dispute between the Assam and Meghalaya, they come down to 12 sectors. Fine. Fine, so 12 sectors. Now these particular disputes onto the 12 sectors have been resolved from a long period of time, and now basically we find that in the March of this particular year, the Assam and Meghalaya had tried to resolve the boundary dispute at the 6 points out of the total 12 points. So now on the 6 points there are the disputes. Is it clear or not? Now it was expected that, or even on these 6 sectors where the dispute was there, they have to hold the consultation in this particular year. But now, because of this fresh round of confrontations that had come, they might not be able to resolve this particular dispute. Now, guys, when we talk about the Assam is not only having the dispute with the Meghalaya, but the Assam is having the dispute with many other states. Now, when we talk about, guys, Assam, earlier the Assam was a very big state. Okay, so basically when India got independent, we find this particular thing that there was the NEFA, that is the Northeastern Frontier Agency, and then there was a super state, a very big state of Assam, which largely constituted the northeast. Now this NEFA, it became the Arunachal Pradesh, and when the NEFA became Arunachal Pradesh, some part from the Assam was also taken, and then the Assam got divided in the multiple states. For example, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Mizoram, some parts were also given into the Arunachal Pradesh. And actually, these are the states where the Assam is having the border disputes right now. Now, last year also we have seen that there were the disputes between the Assam and Mizoram that had happened, and there also the people died. Now, when we talk about, guys, the entire Northeast, many states are having the disputes with each other. And what are the common reasons for these particular disputes? So we find that there are the traditional hunting grounds, now which have been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. Actually, today the artificial boundaries have been created. Now let's say this is the state A, this is the state B. Okay, and in between that you have created an artificial boundary. Now suppose there is a tribe which is living in this particular region. Now this tribe go to this part also, they go to this part also. Now suppose this tribe today come into the state of B. When they'll go to state A, there the people, local people will not allow them, and then there will be the disputes that will be emerged. So the traditional hunting grounds have been there, traditional grazing grounds, traditional farming grounds have been there. Now they got divided by the modern administrative boundaries, and many a times they are getting because of that there are the disputes that are coming now. In this particular direction, guys, the communities living in this particular region, they have to be taken up into the confidence, boundaries are to be adjusted, and a kind of a congenial arrangement is to be made between the state as well as the tribes living within those particular states, so that they don't come in violence, so that they don't adopt such kind of a violent mechanisms in the coming times. Now see this particular thing, guys. Just one extra dimension I want to give you here. Basically, when we talk about the northeast, when we talk about the northeast now, first of all, basically, the Northeast happens to be a very important part of India for its Act East policy. For its Act East policy. Now, India is carrying the outreach program towards the eastern nations, and towards this Act East, Northeast will play a very important role. Moreover, guys, into the past, we have seen that the China had tried to take the advantage to the insurgency that is going into the northeast. As the insurgency goes on, China provides them the weapons, China provides them support, ideological support as well as the physical weaponry support, and China is trying to take advantage. So therefore, stabilized northeast will be in the national interest, and the stabilized northeast will also be having the regional interest. So therefore, it is needed to be taken care of. Fine. That is all about this particular article. Now we'll move to the next article. An Indian recipe. An Indian recipe to quell micronutrient malnutrition. Now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 1 as well as GS paper number 2, issues of hunger. GS paper number 1, GS paper number 2, issues of hunger. Okay, now basically, guys, it has been provided that first of all, when we talk about India is a welfareist state, and being a welfareist state, India has to provide the basic necessities of life to every individual. Within these basic necessities of life, food, shelter and clothing are provided, and food is the most basic requirement that is to be provided. Now today, when we talk about India, the conditions the conditions of the people are, many people are suffering a lot because of the poor nutrition standards that have. Now these poor nutrition standards, fine, the malnutrition, it is bringing a kind of a public health crisis in India, and it is the biggest challenge that right now the India is facing. According to the National Family Health Survey 5 data, which was recently released, that is a latest National Family Health Survey 5, according to it, it has been provided that every second Indian woman is facing with the anemia. Anemia is the condition which is caused when basically this is a condition which is caused when a person consumes less iron, or when a person consumes the less leafy vegetables consumption is less. Okay, so then the third child, every third child is stunted. Every third child is stunted. Stunted is the ratio between the age and height. Ratio between the age and height. Okay, and then the malnourishment is that when you are not getting the adequate calorie, and then every fifth child is wasted. Now, what is the wasting? Wasting is the height to height to weight. So for a specific height, a particular weight is needed to be there. When it will not be there, the condition will be called as the wasted. So this is the condition of our children, and this wasting, this stunting, anemia, all of them are because of the poor nutritional standards that are there. However, there is also the report by the FAO that we have. So according to the Food and Agricultural Organization Food Security Index report of 2021, they say that India ranks 101 out of 116 countries in the Global Hunger Index 2021. Here it is being provided that 15.3% of undernourished population is there in India. Highest proportion of stunted children, 30% of children are stunting. Wasting stands at 17.3%. Fine, children, 17.3% children are wasted. And it has been provided that basically the stunting in India is significantly higher than the Asian average. Okay, now the article is saying that there can be the innovative solution that can be used to tame this particular hunger or nutritional challenge that is there. What can be the solution? Solution can be the food fortification. So guys, what is food fortification? Food fortification is a mechanism where artificially the nutritional content into the food can be increased. For example, it is a process of adding nutrients. Now the rice and wheat, they can be fortified with the iron, folic acid, vitamin B12. Okay, iodine can be added additionally. So by this fortified food grains, the hunger and nutritional problems can be reduced. Here, there are the states which have already carried the pilot project. Pilot is a trial project which have carried for the food fortification. Now, for example, what had happened into the past? Maharashtra had provided the fortified rice. They had provided the fortified rice which had additional iron, B12 component, folic acid was there. These fortified rices were provided as a part of the PDS. Fine, as the public distribution system it was provided, and it was so successful that we find that the anemia's prevalence reduced from 58.9% to just 29.5%. So just anemia got reduced by the half, and this happened within the span of 2 years only. And the center government, after the success of this fortified rice that was being provided into the Maharashtra, had taken the decision that the fortified rice, which is a staple diet for more than 65% of the population, they consume it. This fortified rice will be provided through the PDS, public distribution system. It will be provided through the ICDS, that is the Integrated Child Development Services, ICDS, as well as under the PM Poshan Abhiyan. The fortified rice will be provided, and this is something which can be very effective. Now the fortified rice distribution scheme has much benefits, and there are the 80 countries who had framed laws, who are providing the food fortification. Okay, they have framed the laws for the cereal flour, it is being fortified. 130 countries have brought the law of providing the iodized salt, and 13 countries have mandated the rice fortification. Okay, so basically there are around 180 countries which are providing the fortified flour, 13 countries providing the fortified rice, and 130 countries providing the iodinized salt. So this is certain intervention that is being carried. Now there is the noon meal scheme that is being carried into the Gujarat. So basically recently an 8-month long study was carried on multiple micronutrient fortified rice interventions. So right, fortified rice was provided to the school children into the age of 6 to 12 years as a part of the midday meal scheme. And by giving this fortified rice to the school children, it is found that their hemoglobin concentration has increased. There is a 10% reduction into the anemia. Moreover, their cognitive score increased by 11.3%. Cognitive means their mental performance. Okay, it increased by 11.3%. So in the state of the Gujarat, the fortified meals that were being provided to the school children has been very much effective. And guys, see, the case study of Maharashtra and the case study of Gujarat can be used in your answers also separately. So this can be a very good case study. Then moving on. The article is saying this particular thing, that today when we talk about the iron deficiency is very big problem in India. It is a major public health concern because it is responsible for 3.6%, 3.6% of disability adjusted life years. Okay, now, according to the Niti Aayog, it has been provided Niti Aayog, and this Niti Aayog's idea was based onto the WHO's analysis, and they said that if we want to provide the fortified rice, we need the budget of around 2,800 crore per year, but it can save 35% of or 16.6 million DALYs, that is the disability adjusted life years. Okay, so these many life years will be saved. Now food activists, they have criticized this food fortification scheme also. They have provided that many times the iron is overloaded. Now you see this particular thing. Basically basically there is the hypervitaminosis. There is the issue of the hypervitaminosis. Now what is the hypervitaminosis? Or sometimes there is, let's say, the XYZ community, they are not having the deficiency of one particular vitamin or one particular mineral, but you still give the supplement to that particular community. So what will happen? They will see a kind of a toxicity. Now, there is a Jharkhand's a tribal population. They are suffering from the sickle cell anemia and thalassemia. Because of that particular thing, the iron that is being given to them, this is not good for them. Now, when we talk about the sickle cell anemia, it is an inherited disease in which the red blood cells, they have an abnormal crescent shape. They block the small blood vessels, and basically they do not last. Fine. And normal red blood cells, they do not last, their longevity is reduced. And when we talk about the thalassemia, the thalassemia is also the blood disorder which is characterized by the less oxygen carrying protein. Okay. Now, in the thalassemia as well as into the sickle cell disease, giving this fortified rice has not been proved to be effective. Rather, it is exacerbating their health condition. So, therefore, it has been provided. Now, food fortification can be cost effective, can address multiple micronutrient deficiencies. So we need to carry it, but we need to carry a detailed study also, that how the fortified rice can be provided in this particular manner, that it increases only the positive outcomes. Okay, so that is all, guys, about this particular article. Find a very good article with respect to the hunger related issues. Many a times we suggest the food fortification. Now the food fortification can be single-handedly, it can be the most important intervention that can be carried. Now, moving to the next article. Towards a robust triumvirate. Now, this article is talking about the recent issue that is going in the Supreme Court, where Supreme Court is hearing the case on the functional independence of the Election Commission of India. Okay. Now, this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2, issues related to the constitutional bodies, as well as this particular article will also be taken up for the it will also be taken up with respect to the electoral reforms also. This particular article will be taken up. Let's start with the article. Okay, so basically, guys, right now what is happening, a five judge constitution bench is hearing the petitions where the election commission's independence is being seen, where it is being also seen that how the reforms that have been suggested for the election commission of India in the last 2 years, how those reforms can be implemented. Now, guys, if you are following the newspaper analysis regularly, we have seen this particular issue in the past also, where what had happened, actually the case was going on that within the Election Commission of India, the position of election commissioner was lying vacant. And as the petition was filed into the Supreme Court on this particular line, what happened? An IAS officer will not use the name. An IAS officer took the voluntary retirement on the Friday, took the voluntary retirement onto the Friday, and that officer was appointed as the election commissioner on the Saturday. All the things happened in just within 24 hours. The selection, the appointment, everything happened within the 24 hours. And then from the Monday, he also assumed the charge. So in very fast time, just when the Supreme Court started to hear this particular matter, fine, an officer was appointed. So actually it points to a fact that whether the elections into the election commission of appointments into the election commission of India, are they transparent? Is election commission of India working with autonomy or not? Is it clear or not? Now, right now in the Supreme Court, this particular matter is going on, and Supreme Court is actually investigating the two matters broadly. Other matters are also there, but these are the two most important matters that the Supreme Court is investigating. Number one, the matter of appointment. Now, it has been provided that how the election commissioners and chief election commissioners should be appointed. If I tell you, as of now, Article 324 provides that the chief election commissioner and election commissioners will be appointed by the President of India. So it means, Abhi, you know this thing, that President cannot act without the aid and advice of the government. So it means that the central government is directly appointing the election commissioner and the chief election commissioner. Now, by that particular thing, it might be possible that they appoint such a kind of a people who is favorable to the ruling government. And because we see this thing, guys, when we talk about a democracy is a democracy's core institution is the fair election process, and election commission of India is therefore the bedrock, the cornerstone of the democracy. So therefore we need to make sure that the election commission of India is working into the fair, transparent and non-partisan manner. So therefore the appointment process of the members is very important. And then the next is the security of tenure. So basically right now the chief election commissioner and the election commissioner, they don't have the security of tenure. So that is also being discussed. Okay, CEC though is having, but ECs are not having. Okay, CEC is having, but ECs are not having. So this is also the thing that will be taken up. Now we'll discuss both of these issues one by one. The first issue is the issue of the matter of appointment. Now, I told you that as of now, the president appoints the election commissioner and chief election commissioner. Okay, but now in the past, but now the question is coming that rather than that, we need to bring a collegium. We need to bring a collegium which will suggest the recommendation, and this suggestion has been given into the past as well. So here we are going to take the recommendation, the references of certain committees. So Dinesh Goswami committee that came in 1990 suggested that the chief election commissioner should be appointed by the president, but the president has to consult the chief justice of India. It has to consult with the leader of opposition. However, if the leader of opposition is not available, then the consultation is to be done with the leader of the largest opposition group into the Lok Sabha. And after this particular consultation only, the chief election commissioner can be appointed. So a kind of a collegium type of body was suggested by the Dinesh Goswami committee. More importantly, it also said that such kind of a consultation, it also provided that the consultation should also be done for the appointment of the election commissioners. It has been provided that when election commissioners are to be appointed, then the consultation is to be taken with the chief election commissioner. Along with the chief election commissioner, the CGI, Chief Justice of India, leader of opposition, their consultation should also be taken up. Then there was also the National Commission to review the working of the constitution that was constituted. And the National Commission, fine, it was constituted under the chairmanship of M.N. Venkatachalaya. So therefore sometimes it is also called as the Venkatachalaya Commission. So the Venkatachalaya Commission had suggested this particular thing, that the chief election commissioner and other election commissioners should be appointed onto the basis of the recommendation of a collegium of a body. Now what is this body? This body will comprise the Prime Minister, the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, the leader of opposition into the Rajya Sabha also is to be taken up. Then the Speaker of Lok Sabha, then the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So these particular members will make a body, and this particular body will suggest that who will be appointed. Then after that we have the 255th report, and the 255th report of the Law Commission. They also said this particular thing, that that all the election commissioners should be made by all the appointment should be made by the president, and the president has to consult the 3-member collegium, that is the Prime Minister, leader of opposition of the Lok Sabha, as well as the Chief Justice of India. Moreover, they also provided that this election commissioners need to be given the safeguard from the arbitrary removal. Okay, so as the safeguards have been given to the chief election commissioners, in that particular thing also they need to be given the protection from arbitrary removal. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the removal, chief election commissioner can only be removed in the manner of the Supreme Court judges. So there is a kind of an impeachment process. Understand this particular thing. There is a kind of an impeachment process by which only the chief election commissioner can be removed. Chief election commissioner cannot be removed just onto the arbitrariness of the government, but election commissioners don't have that particular protection. It has been provided that election commissioners can be removed onto the basis of the recommendation of the chief election commissioners. So the protection for removal is there with the CEC, but it is not there with the EC, but it is to be provided now. Then further moving on, it has been seen that over the years, though these good recommendations have been made, but none of these particular recommendations gained traction. They did not got implemented. Now second issue comes on to the security of tenure. Now when we talk about the Supreme Court, guys, Supreme Court has in the past given the session judgment. In the session judgment, Supreme Court provided, now the session judgment was progressive because of certain things, but at certain times it missed certain important points also. So basically guys, the session judgment, just a minute, it provided that there will be the equal power to the election commissioner as well as the chief election commissioner. And it provided that if there is any dispute between the election commissioner, the dispute will be taken up by the majority. Okay, but at that point of a time it did not provided the election commissioner as the same constitutional protection which has been given to the chief election commissioners. Already I have discussed this particular point. So I told you chief election commissioner can only be removed through an impeachment process, but election commissioner cannot be removed. That same constitutional protection was not given in the session case. So this is the point where the Supreme Court missed. Now it has been provided that if we don't, if the protection, the tenure, the protection from the removal is not given to the election commissioner, then they might hesitate to act independently. Many number of times they will see that they need to be into the good books of the government. They might not be able to act independently. Guys, whenever we read the polity, we find this particular thing, that what are the factors of independence. Number one, their expenditures need to be charged onto the consolidated fund of India. Secondly, we see this particular thing, consolidated fund of India. Secondly, we see this particular thing, that they need to have the protection from removal, okay, as well as their service conditions should not be changed to their disadvantage. So these particular things are to be taken up. So all these particular matters are right now going into the Supreme Court, and we'll see that how the Supreme Court will rule on these particular matters. So that is all, guys, about that. And now we'll move to the next article. Party Congress over, understanding the China puzzle. Okay, now basically, guys, this particular article, fine. So Hindu, I think that when the Hindu don't get any article, they put this particular Communist Party of China's basically National Congress article of China in the newspaper. So last month, guys, what happened? 20th 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China was held. Now what is this National Congress? Now, guys, the National Congress, it is the highest level body meet. It is the highest level body meet that is organized once in the 5 year, and they lay down the 5 year agenda plan of the China. Is it clear or not? In this National Congress, there are some high profile appointments that are also being made. For example, Politburo is appointed. Politburo Standing Committee is appointed, okay, in this National Congress. And now the 20th National Congress was held recently, okay. So it has laid down the plan for next 5 years, that is 2027 till 2027, okay. And if you are following the newspaper analysis regularly, I have discussed this entire issue, that what are these Politburos, what are the Politburo standing committees, okay, all these things into the detail. But however, they are not right now the matter of concern in this particular article. This is just a background which additionally I am trying to tell you, so that you are able to understand that what this National Congress is all about, which is being discussed here. Now see this particular thing. So recently, this 20th Party Congress, National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party was held. Now, in this particular Congress, we see this particular thing, that the China is preparing for a major conflict that might come. China is preparing itself. First of all, China had provided that before 2049, that is the 100th anniversary of the China wants to become the superpower in the world. And it has been provided that basically, if we do a careful reading, we find that Mr. Xi's its ideology, it's driving the policy. Mr. Xi's ideology is driving the policy. Now, when we talk about, guys, here it has been provided that there is a great deal of relevance in this particular National Congress. Now, if we read this particular National Congress, we find this particular thing, that the China has given many such kind of references. For example, China had taken up this particular decision. Now, if I give you the reference from the Mao Zedong said that the power grows out of the barrel of the gun. Okay, so power is the muscle power. Now, in this particular capacity, China wants to increase their muscle strength. They want to modernize their armies. Basically, People's Liberation Army has to be modernized. This is something that the China has done. Now it has been provided that deliberations in the Congress party not appeared to be directed against India. China wants to become a superpower, and China's immediate concern in the neighborhood, though it is India, but long-term concern of China is the USA. So whatever is happening into whatever happened, where the China said that we want to flex our powers, we want to modernize the army, we want to win the local wars, all these things, it will look that they are directed towards the India. It will look okay, but actually they are not directed. Fine. Actually, these deliberations are not directed in India. So they appear, but they are not directed. Fine. Here it has been provided. That there are the repeated charges by the Western sources about Chinese design on countries in the Indo-Pacific. Okay. Now it has been said that specifically China in the Indo-Pacific is becoming powerful. And in the Indo-Pacific, who is India? Who is the most important country in the Indo-Pacific? The most important country is towards the India. So it has been said that all the Chinese design are carried towards the India. That is something. Now, when we talk about, guys, India, there are the border incursions that are happening there. On the LEC, there are the disputes. Fine, they are a continuing cause of concerns. But understand this particular thing, that these border disputes, fine, these incursions are not random and they tend to rise and fall, but they should not be mistaken as precursors to war. ये incursions, they are increasing, they are going down, but they should not be mistaken as the precursors of war. And because of that particular thing, India should not take some wrong steps, India should not take some wrong decisions. It is being provided, it has been provided. Our situation at present does not merit the view that India is about to face a wider conflict in the Himalayas. Fine. Fine, it has been provided that a careful study, a careful study, if we do the Himalayan disputes careful study, we find this thing, that the China is concerned about the Aksai Chin region. Now, why the China is concerned about Aksai Chin region? It is because the Aksai Chin region is in the close proximity of the Tibet and the Xinjiang region. So therefore, China's much of the attempts are being carried just to secure their interest, and the incursions, they will go up, they will go down. China is modernizing the industry, modernizing the army, but we should not say that all these things are specifically directed towards India. Okay, it means that the relation between China and India will not remain smooth also. Okay, there will be the confrontations, there will be the confrontation. India is going more close to the USA, fine, India is going more close to the West, and because of that particular thing also, the confrontations will increase. China also sees that India is making the strategic alliances into the name of the Quad, which are oriented towards the China, so the relations will not smooth also. But at the same times, we don't should go too much overboard with the China as well. This is the suggestion that has been given in this particular article. Is it clear or not? So guys, that's all about this particular thing. Now we'll move to the next article. Supreme Court worried over effects of the GM crops on the livelihood of the women farm laborers. So I hope that it is clear what the article reads. Article reads that the Supreme Court is worried over the effects of the GM crops on the livelihood of women farm laborers. Now this particular article, guys, we'll see with respect to the prelims examination. We'll see this article with respect to the prelims examination, as well as we'll see this particular article with respect to the science and tech. Now, taking up the article. So, first of all, guys, before going in this particular article, I would like to tell you a little bit of a background, because this background is important to make sense of this particular article. So basically, first of all, what has happened? Few days back, actually few weeks back, uh, DMH 11, DMH 11, fine, DMH 11, DMH 11. It is a kind of a genetically modified. It is a genetically modified mustard crop. It is the genetically modified mustard crop, and this mustard crop was given the approval. It was given the approval by the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. This Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee functions under the Ministry of the Environment, Forest and Climate Change. They had given the environmental release to this DMH 11. Okay, it means that the field trials can be carried, this DMH 11 can be grown. Okay, this is something that has happened. Now, basically, first of all, let's little bit know about this DMH 11, and then we will go in this particular article that why the Supreme Court right now the petitions are going on. First of all, when we talk about this DMH 11, that is a mustard crop, it is a transgenic crop. Transgenic crop means that the foreign genes have been used in this particular crop. Now, guys, what is a hybridization? Hybridization is a process where one native, let's say there is one particular crop, that particular crop will be crossed with some foreign or with some other kind of a crop, so that the advantages of those both crops can be achieved into the upcoming crops. Is it clear or not? Now, when we talk about the DMH 11, the DMH 11 was the first time was given the GEAC approval in 2017, but at that point of time, Ministry of Forest Climate Change vetoed that particular process, and basically this particular DMH 11 was kept onto the hold. What is hybridization? Hybridization involves the crossing of the two genetically dissimilar plants varieties, fine, to increase the higher yields. Now let's take one example. I have given this example earlier also. Suppose there are the two varieties of mustard. Suppose there are the two varieties of mustard. Now the variety A, it is having the high yield. It is having the high yield. but it is very much sensitive to weather, it is very much sensitive to moisture and all such kind of a things. Then the next is the variety B. Now the variety B is very hardy. It is very hardy. Okay. It is not much sensitive for the weather changes. It is not much sensitive to the moisture changes. But the productivity is less. But the productivity is less. What we can do? We can cross these two plants. We can cross these two plants. And the third their offsprings, the third plant that will be retrieved after crossing their genes, what will be happening? This particular plant will have the features of both the A as well as B. It will have the high yield also, and it will also be the hardy, it will also be the pest resistant. If it can also be the it might not be that much sensitive to the climatic changes, moisture changes, etc. So hybridization can be carried. Now when we talk about the hybridization, it is crossing the two plants which are genetically dissimilar. Fine, it is involves the crossing of these particular two plants, but the hybridization for the mustard is not that much easy. Why it is not that much easy? Why it is not that much easy? It is not that much easy because, guys, when we talk about the mustard plants, they have both female as well as the male reproductive organ. So female reproductive organ is a pistil and the male reproductive organ is a stamen. So they have both female and the male reproductive organs. Because of that, this particular plant is self pollinating. This plant is self pollinating. It doesn't need some other plant for the pollination. So therefore developing the hybrids was little bit difficult in this particular case. Now, as I have told you that into the hybrid plant, two type of plants will be crossed together. So here the Varuna, that is the indigenous mustard variety, it was crossed with the Eastern European early Hera 2. Now by that particular thing, the DMH11, the crop that has been retrieved, it has 28% higher yield. 28% higher yield, and that particular thing has been proved by the trials that had been carried by the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Now it has been said that GM mustard will be the second GM crop that will get the commercial approval. We have already given have given the approval to the GM cotton. Okay, now when we talk about the GM mustard, it has been developed by the Center of Genetic Manipulation of Crop Plant at the University of Delhi. Is it clear? And it has been seen that this particular move will give boost to the cultivation of mustard and will reduce the dependence onto the import, because for the mustard seeds we are dependent, for the mustards we are mustard oil we have become dependent onto the another countries. So this is the development that has happened. Now guys, first of all, this is entire the background, though it is not given in the article, but it doesn't mean that it is not important. If you don't know this entire background, you will not be able to understand this present development that has come. Now coming to this particular article, basically guys, when we talk about this particular DMH11 mustard that is being developed, now in this hybrid mustard there is one gene that is inserted, and that gene is called that is the bar gene, and this particular gene makes this particular plant tolerant to the herbicide that is glufosinate ammonium. Now what is herbicide? Herbicide is any chemical which is harmful to a plant, that is a herbicide. Now basically we know that when there are the plants along the crops, there are the unwanted weeds that grow, and these unwanted weeds, they take the nutrition from the soil, and therefore these unwanted weeds are not good for that particular plant. You can kill those weeds by spraying some kind of a chemical. For example, glufosinate ammonium chemical can be sprayed on those weeds and those weeds will die, but this chemical will also kill the crop, it will also kill the plant. So therefore what used to happen, the manual weeding, manual unweeding, manual de-weeding was carried. What is this manual de-weeding? There will be the people who will remove those particular plants manually by the hand. That is something that has to be done. Now when we talk about this DMH11, it is herbicide tolerant. Herbicide tolerant means you spray that particular chemical, for example glufosinate ammonium, you spray, only the weeds will be killed. That particular plant will be able to tolerate that. Now because of this herbicide tolerant nature, there are the concerns that have been developed. Number one concerns is that this herbicide tolerant technique, it is carcinogenic. over a period of time, if the people will consume this herbicide tolerant plant, they will develop cancers. Second concern that is coming is that on the women. Now how the women are impacted by that? So basically guys, the Supreme Court had provided. Now first of all, if I tell you, large number of women into the rural areas, they are the agricultural laborers. So Supreme Court had said that there are thousands of women agriculture laborers into the rural areas, and they are engaged into the de-weeding. What they do manually, they take out those weeds and they are getting livelihood by that. But now if we introduce this herbicide tolerant GM DMH11, what will happen? Directly the chemicals will be sprayed on that weed will die, so there will be no requirement of these women. So because of that particular thing, the women who are the agricultural laborers, their livelihood will be impacted and they will substantially be negatively be impacted by that particular thing. So this is guys this entire issue that has come. Okay, I hope that you have understood this particular thing, and if you have understood it along with the background that we have taken up, you don't need to go beyond it. Now moving to the next article. Okay, India's G20 agenda will be inclusive, ambitious, and action oriented. Okay, now basically guys, first of all, as we talk about this particular article, now we have seen first of all in the past multiple articles. I think even on G20 we have taken some 7 or 8 articles into the past. So basically what has happened recently the Bali summit was carried in the Indonesia, and now for the 2023 India is going to be the president of the G20. Now, when we talk about the India's presidency will be focusing on being inclusive, ambitious, and action oriented. Ambitious, and action oriented. Just a minute. Is it clear or not? So basically, guys, it has been provided that the previous 17 presidencies of the G20 that has been there, they have delivered the significant result. But still, they have delivered the significant results for many number of kind of things. For example, macroeconomic stability. They have rationalized the international taxations. They have relieved the debt-ridden countries. But when India is assuming, there are the fundamental challenges that India is going to deal with. Okay, we see this particular thing that basically can we catalyze the fundamental mind shift to benefit the humanity as a whole? What India can do to benefit the humanity as a whole? It has been provided that through all the history, humanity had lived by the scarcity. There were the limited resources, there were the confrontation, competitions. Zero sum mindset has always been there. What is the zero sum mindset? Zero sum mindset. Now, the zero sum game means that the power is limited. If there are two contenders of power, A and B, if A will take the power, B will not get any power, and if B take the power, A don't get any power. So power is a zero sum game. So the countries have lived with that the power is a zero sum game, and because of that particular thing, we find this particular thing that the world as a whole is suffering. Today we find this thing that the essential goods are getting weaponized. What is the meaning of the essential goods getting weaponized? Now you see this particular thing that the China, just a minute, we see this particular thing that the China is one country on which the entire world is dependent for the essential goods, but the China is weaponizing that particular thing. Is it clear? The vaccines are getting hoarded by the few countries which are very much rich. So today we find this particular thing that the humanities is facing a lot of vulnerabilities. The humanity is facing a lot of vulnerabilities. Now it is being said that if humans were inherently selfish, what would explain the lasting appeal of so many of the spiritual traditions? People have sacrificed into the past. Spiritualism has been there into the people. So people are not inherently greedy, inherently ambitious. Some vested interest come in between, which make people greedy and which make some people selfish. Now it has been provided that in India we have a tradition where we see all living beings, all animate, inanimate things as important. We have the example of the Panchatattva. We say that the life is made up of the five basic elements, that is the earth, water, fire, air, and space, and the harmony between all these particular elements is important. So in this particular way, G20 presidency will also be focusing on oneness. That is the theme we have given is the one earth, one family, one future. This is one particular change. Today we have the means to produce enough to meet the basic needs of the people in the world. Today India don't we do not need to fight for the survival. Okay, we do not need to fight for the survival. The era of the war has gone. Today the greatest challenge we face is of climate change. The biggest challenges are climate change, terrorism, pandemic, and that particular thing can only be resolved if we act together. So today guys, we have the technology, and by these particular technologies we can solve these particular challenges. Today India, it is housing one sixth of the humanity. Okay, we have diversity of language, regions, cultures. We are the oldest traditions. We basically the India contributes to the DNA of democracy. Are you getting it or not? We are the mother of democracy. The democratic institutions have existed throughout the history in India. Fine. Today is the India's fast growing large economy. Citizen centric governance is being taken up in India. And India can be the teacher to the entire world. Citizen led, people centric movements are being carried in India. Now, it has been provided that today India has leveraged the technology to create the digital public goods which are inclusive, which are interoperable. Fine, for example, UPI is there. UPI is there. Fine, social protection schemes are being carried digitally. So basically, India's experience into the digital technologies can provide the global solutions. India's experience can be the templates that can be used by the other countries. So this is something that the India is focusing upon. Now our priorities will focus on one Earth, creating harmony within our family. Okay. Fine, we want to heal the planet. For that particular thing, we have also started the life movement. Life movement has already been started. Okay, so basically it has been provided that when we talk about the India can be a very important harbinger of modern change that right now the world is needing. Is it clear or not? So guys, this is what the India's agenda will be. So basically the article is just focusing that what India might contribute. So the article, therefore I have taken this entire article. Is it clear? So that is all guys about it. Now moving to the next article. GDP growth dips to 6.3% as manufacturing slides. Now, do you need to track this article? Do you need to make the notes of this article? No. What is this particular article is guys? Basically, the article is talking about that India's GDP grew by 6.3% by the July-September quarter. Okay, it was 13.5% in quarter 1 and 8.4% into the quarter, that is the second quarter, and into the quarter 3 it is 6.3%. So this particular movement is going on. Now guys, here every sector's contribution, how much every sector, manufacturing contracted, service sector, every sector's contribution, you don't need to go. So no need to go and track this particular article, because what will be the yearly growth, that is more important. Every quarter's data is not important, and you need not to compare it also. And now we have the mains practice question for today. The question says that what is food fortification, how this can help us in reducing micronutrient deficiency and address overall health benefits, explain. So this will be the question for the GS paper number 2 hunger, and it will be a 15 marker question. So that is all guys about it, and with this we come to an end to the today's newspaper analysis. So that is all guys, I hope that you have understood the articles and you have liked it. So that is all, and if you have liked it guys, please do hit the like button, and please do keep on leaving your lovely comments that you are living every day. It is a very important factor which boosts my motivation, and it pushes us to work even harder for this initiative. Thank you all guys. Now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then, please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.